Well, as I said, good morning, everyone, from my side of the world. In today's online workshop, we will be exploring some of the new features introduced in 6.7. And the reason I kind of waited for today, a few hours later or a day after, is I wanted to make sure everyone's got hold of WordPress 6.7. So, um, if you have not updated to 6.7, you can go and do that, or you can check out 6.7 um, in Playground. So Felipe, if you want to share the link to Playground, um, um, that would be great. As you know, it is a way for you to interact with WordPress without needing a host. It's in your browser, and it's a sandbox. It's an area for you to play around and improve your WordPress skills, and also a development environment if that's what you wanted to use it for. All right, so let's jump straight in. I'm going to make my way to my test website, and you will notice if I go to Appearance and click on Themes, I've already installed the new 2025 default theme. And that's the first thing I want to talk about this morning is the updated 2025 theme. So let's make our way to the site editor to see to check out this new theme. So a few things about the 2025 theme. It's got a minimal layout and it's very flexible for various types of sites. For example, portfolio sites, photo blogs, news sites, etc. And two of the main things that I wanted to point out is that there are numerous style variations, and secondly, there's an extensive pattern library. Now, those of you who joined me when I created a portfolio site, you'll notice this is the site that I built in the previous online workshop. But yeah, I wanted to use this as my test website for today's session as well. So as I said, lots of style variations and an extensive pattern library. So let's see what that looks like. So first up, let's go to patterns. And if you notice, it says all patterns 70. So there's 70 different patterns to choose from, which is of course a great way to get started and to save time building content. So at the bottom, you'll notice there it's 2 or 4, and you can literally just scroll through all the available patterns. Now, as a reminder, if you like a pattern, you can use that as a base to, create something else or to customize that. So if you click on the 3 vertical dots and you say duplicate, you can say, let's say custom 3 columns. And then you can select a category, of course. So I'm happy with that. And then you can decide you want to sync it or not. So I'm going to say I'm leaving it as an unsynced pattern, and then I can say duplicate. And then you'll notice there's a new category called My Patterns. And if you click on My Patterns and you open this, you can now, of course, modify this as you please. You can completely change it. But the great thing is you were able to use this as a starter pattern, or as a base to work from. Right, so there's a lot of amazing patterns in the pattern library. We'll look at that a bit more just now. The other thing that I mentioned was the style variations. So if you go to styles, you will notice there are a lot of different style combinations to choose from, as well as color palettes and typography. Now, before I jump into styles, let's chat about the patterns a bit more. But for me to go into patterns, I have to talk about one of my favorite update, and that's part of 6.7, and that is the zoom out view. So if I open my homepage, you will notice a new toggle, and it says zoom out. So if you click on zoom out, and this is kind of coincides with where I'm going with patterns, if you click on zoom out, you get a high level view of your content editing. And this links with section style. So you are now able to compose at pattern level instead of individual blocks. So if you are in zoom out view, you will notice if I open my list view, you will see all your sections. But now, if I click on a section or a pattern, and I click on the plus icon that says add pattern, you will be able to add any of these patterns that we looked at now. So if I go to featured, you will notice there's a pattern. So let's add that pattern. And then you can find another pattern that you like. And if I close that, we're back here. And here you are able to use the movers to move the pattern around. And if you click on the 3 vertical dots, you are able to make a copy of the pattern. You can also duplicate it and then customize it further, or you can delete it. So let's delete that pattern. Now, something else that's also been updated with 6.7 is that the option to shuffle between patterns is only available now when you're in zoom out view. So in the block toolbar, you'll notice the shuffle option. And if you click on that, you are literally just shuffling through all the patterns, and you can quickly find another pattern that you are after. And then secondly, if you open your sidebar settings, you now have section styles. So as you'll notice with the 2025 theme, there's a variety of styles to select from. And the cool thing is you can actually see a preview of those styles. So you're changing the style at pattern level or at section level. And then back to default. So which one are we going to go for? All right, but now if you wanted to edit the pattern at granular level, you have to double click. So if you double click on the pattern, you're back to the normal view. And then of course you can customize individual blocks, and you'll have all your settings available again. But again, if you're back in zoom out view, you were able to style the section as a whole. So yes, it allows you to style different sections or parts of your site independently of each other. So this is a great new feature. And I thought I wanted to also show you how to quickly create a new page, and then also talk about starter patterns. So if I go to pages and I add a new page, let's call this test. I can draft a new page. You will notice there are many starter patterns to choose from, page patterns to choose from. So in one click, you can actually have a new page in place that you can build from. So let's select this business homepage, and there we go. We have a page in place. But now, some people maybe don't like that option to add starter patterns, because every time if you add a new page, the option to add one of those starter patterns will come up. If you don't like that coming up, you can turn it off. So if you click on the three vertical dots top right of your site, and you make your way to preferences, there is an option where it says show starter patterns. Show starter patterns when creating a new page. You can turn that off. So let's turn that off for now. Save changes. Let's go back to, let's add a new page. Let's call this test 2. Create a draft, and there you'll see that the starter patterns don't appear. And now, if I click on the plus icon again, I can go to patterns, and you can literally build an entire page just by clicking and mixing and matching different patterns. There you'll notice some page patterns again. You'll notice some people also like dragging and dropping. You can do that as well. I also wanted to just check if you, oh, there we go. You'll notice there are some patterns that's part of the .org pattern library. So let's add that. Now you'll notice if I go back here, sorry, let's just open zoom out view again. If you open your styles, you'll notice you can change the color here, but you won't be able to add that section styles. But then, of course, you can change the color here and then double click, and then you can go in and you can modify this pattern further. You can just copy the styles. You know, you can, oh, let's quickly add, I'll show you. So let's say call to action. Let's just add this here. As you'll notice, this is the way the buttons block has been styled. So you can select this, click on the 3 vertical dots and say copy styles. And then you just quickly go to that buttons block and click on the 3 vertical dots and say paste styles. So you can quickly update this, the section, change the color of the text, etc. All right. So that is the zoom out view, and I also then wanted to chat a bit more about the style variations that's available. So let's go back to my home page. All right. And let's say you wanted to style using one of the variations provided by the theme. You can click on styles there. And here you can, of course, update it. But I always like doing it using the other option, because then you also have a zoom out view. So if I click on edit styles and go to browse styles here, you also have a zoomed out view. And now you can try out some of the other style variations that come with the theme. But now they have taken it a step further, and they have actually added typography and style presets to your styles area as well. So you will notice you can choose one of your style variations, but in this theme you have the color presets and you've got typography presets. And the great thing is you can actually mix and match them. So I've selected this style, right? Now you might say, okay, no, I don't want this typography, this typeset. I want this one. So you can play around with the typesets, and you might say, okay, no, I like that typeset, but I like this color or that color. So you can mix and match between the two. So let me just select that again. And let's say you select this pattern and you don't like that style, you can quickly just click on the settings, go to zoom out, and again, select maybe a different style. There we go. Or, of course, we can go to browse styles and we just go default again and update it. All right, so just to recap, there are a lot of style variations and an extensive pattern library part of 2025. And yeah, I think the zoom out view is my favorite update, as well as section styles and the fact that you've got your color and typography presets available and that you can mix and match them. But if you also go to styles and you click on typography, you'll notice you see your typesets available here as well. And if you go to colors and click on palette, you will see your color palettes available here as well under your global styles area. All right, Philippe, anything that came up while I covered this first part of our session?
Yes, one of the questions was around the possibility of how it's choosing the next pattern when you're trying to use this shuffle mode, shuffle solution. I think we covered that when we basically it is possible to do that. Like it's just going to use a different pattern from the same category. Is that correct?
Yes, that's how far. That's so. Let's quickly test that out. Let's select. Let's go to about. So there's 8 items in about. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so let's select this first one and then shuffle. So it should end with that one, right? So 2, 3, 4, 5. No, it's not using the category, is it? No, it's not using the category. I think it's literally going through all your available patterns.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, makes sense. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. And I
Although
think
there we
to
back with there we back.
yeah, yeah. And you can also revert with like a Command Z or Control Z, I think. So
So I
as I
think
mean, if you
maybe, sorry, I think maybe I just want to check. Is it the type of container block maybe? That is a good question. So if so this is a banner. Hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. I also thought it was by category, but it doesn't seem like it's just using the ones from that category. So maybe somebody else knows exactly I'm trying to think. Let's use another one. So let's go to gallery. Just delete this. And so there's 6 items in the gallery block. Nope. It's not just using, but it won't be actually adding these ones because these are not part of your theme. I realize that's the only block provided by the theme, or the pattern provided by the theme. So when you shuffle, you're not going to see the ones from the .org pattern library. So that's why when I started shuffling, you're literally going through um, the ones from your theme.
Yes. By the way, we also had a comment, not exactly a question, but about the speed that we're going on the training, and Elisa shared it, and that makes sense. We also going to have a recording of this. Anyway, I think maybe that's a good feedback to maybe. I want to cover everything, but for 6.7 version. But maybe we can try to give more time for everyone to process the information. And anyway, we're also going to have the recording, right? So
Yeah,
that's should help
exactly.
a
And
little bit.
at the
Yes.
end of the session, we'll have more time for questions and so forth.
Yes.
All right. So let me move on then. So another update. So let's get out of the zoom out view. Another update is the data view has been refined even more. Now, as a reminder, um, data view is basically, it gives you a collection of your templates and your patterns and your pages. So if we go to templates, for example, this is a data view. It shows you all your available templates, and you can decide to view this in a different format. So if you click on the 4 little blocks there, you'll notice we are viewing our templates in grid view, but we can view it in list view, or we can view it in table view. And this is where some of the updates have happened. If you select view options, you'll notice you can filter these by template or author. You can order them from ascending order or to descending order. You can change the items per page. And here you will notice you can hide or unhide certain properties. So if there's only one author, you don't need this, right? So then you can just click on the little I and it will hide the author. And if you want the author back, you'll notice the I is closed. You can show the author again. And if we select the grid view and make our way to options, you can actually change the preview size. I like this. We can go really big and you'll see your templates or your collection of templates in a very large view. And you might say, oh, I want to see 50 per page. And then you can also hide or unhide using the little I, some of these properties. Now, by default, you can view your templates in grid view, right? But if we make our way to pages, you will notice that the default for pages, or the data views for pages, is by default in list view. But you can even change this thing to grid if you if you wanted to. All right, so those are the refinements that have happened with the data views or data views. Now, the next thing that I want to chat about is the query loop block. I think this has been a very good step forward for WordPress because the query loop block can be a bit confusing to some folks. Now, as you'll notice, or as a reminder, the query loop block is an advanced block that allows you to display posts based on specified parameters, right? So it's a way for you to display your blog posts or your news posts or whatever it may be. So I thought let's first look at how the query loop block worked in 6.6 and before to show you how cool the update is. Now, let me just jump to my old website. So I'm using Playground, and you'll know if you click on the little toggle there at the top, you can change the WordPress version. And that's how I also used Playground before 6.7 was launched. I just selected 6.7 here. And then for this example, I went back to 6.6. Now, here's my posts, just the dummy content that I created. I can put that in trash. Okay, so this is the query loop block, right? So add query loop, and you can choose one of the patterns. Okay, I'm going to select this one. I'm going to say save draft. Now this is 6.6, remember. Now, if I did that, I added a query loop block to a post and I wanted to view this in a new tab, you would notice there's no content. And this is really confusing to people. You first had to select your query loop block, and then you had to deselect inherit query from template. And when you did that, save draft, your post would have appeared. But that's not necessary anymore because in 6.7, it automatically inherits the query from the template. So let's jump back to 6.7 now. And let's first actually look at your blog home template, because it is a bit different when you're on your template or when you add a query loop block to your page or post. So we'll look at both. But if I go to templates and I select my blog home template, you will notice my query loop block is of course automatically added because it is my my posts page. And if I select the query loop block in my list view and I open the sidebar settings, you will notice now it says query type. Now, literally, you didn't have to do anything, right? It's there. You can just keep it as is. It's default. But if you wanted to customize the query, you can click on custom now. And then you've got some updates here in the sidebar settings as well. In the past, you could change post per page, offset, and so forth in the block toolbar, but now it's below display. And you can see now you can change posts per page. And the other ones that's a bit more advanced is hidden behind the 3 vertical dots. So if you click on the 3 vertical dots, you can select offset or you can select maximum pages to show. So that's an update. Another update is if you click on advanced, reload full page. So it says reload the full page instead of just the post list when visitors navigate between pages. Now this is off by default because otherwise the page will, every time you move on to a next group of posts, the page will reload. So you can toggle that on, but it is by default off and it is hidden below advanced. And then another option, or sorry, another new feature is that, when you go to filters, before 6.7, you had your taxonomies, you had your authors and your keyword. So you could filter them by taxonomy or by author or keyword, but now you can also filter them by post format. And if you select formats and you click there, you will notice you can filter and let's say, for example, only see posts with this from this post format. Okay, so this is when you edit your post page or your post template, your blog home template. You've got the default or you've got the custom. So let's say, for example, you've got a new page though. So add new page. So let's say query loop block, query loop, create a draft. And let's add the query loop block here. And let's choose the same. You will notice there's no custom or default. And the great thing is the settings will automatically be configured to work in that context. So that is the wonderful thing about the new update, is that it automatically works. You don't have this option anymore. Remember, I showed you here this inherit query from template. You don't have to worry about that anymore. It will work in this context automatically, and you can, of course, customize it. And of course, you can even choose a different pattern, etc. All right, so that's the query loop block improvements. The next thing I wanted to show you is that you can now customize your theme's font size presets. That's also probably my second favorite change after the zoom out view. Now, as a reminder, if you go to styles and or maybe I must first just go to a page. You know, as you let's just open my about page. As you know, when you're editing, you select a block. You can see the size, these presets from small to XXL. Or if you go to styles, edit styles, and you go to typography, you know, you can set these at a global level as well. You can select these presets when you change your styles globally, or for example, if you go to headings and you're changing your heading levels, you've got these presets. The great thing in 6.7 is you can actually update these. So if you go to typography here in your style section, you go to typography and you scroll down to font sizes, you can see font size presets. And now you can actually override these or customize these. So usually when you select small or medium or large, it was set in your theme, it was set here, but now you can change it. So let's say, for example, you select extra large, you can customize it. And on top of this, the bonus is that another added feature is fluid typography. Now, what that means is your typography will, or your font will scale dynamically. So basically that means your font will, if you select the fluid typography, your font will change or adapt to every change in screen size. At the bottom, it also says there's scale the font size dynamically to fit the screen or viewport. And then another option is that you can add custom values, custom fluid values. So you can set the minimum and you can set the maximum. And how that basically works is that when you select fluid typography and you add a minimum, you add a maximum, your fluid typography is going to calculate the minimum and maximum based on the viewport or the screen size, basically. So we are in extra large. So let's go to max, for example, and let's make this a bit larger. And you can see it's changing because we are on desktop, right? So the maximum is 2.8 now. And let's just save that. Now let's view this on mobile. Whoops, sorry. Let's view this on mobile. So let's go to tablet first, and then let's go to mobile. Now, let's say you wanted this to be smaller on mobile. Now you can change this as well because the minimum is 1.75 at the moment, right? So you can say, we actually want the minimum to be 1.3. So yeah, I would say fluid typography is a great bonus, and we know the font will scale dynamically. And as mentioned, you can customize the minimum and the maximum. And if we return, you can even add a custom font preset. So yeah, a great new feature that was added. And that will also help, or it's helped improve our font management process. And you've got more control as well. Talking about fonts, I also wanted to show you that in 6.7, if you go to fonts and you click on manage fonts, you will also see now that fonts are grouped by source. So these ones below theme, those are the fonts that have been added by my theme, and that's active on my site now. And then the custom ones are the ones that you've uploaded from Google Fonts or manually. So yeah, also a new addition is that it's been grouped. Were there any questions about font size presets before I move on?
I see some questions here. Let's see. The first one is, for setting the minimum and maximum font size, are they based on 16 pt start? And then Eliza replied, you can choose to use RAM. So yeah, so you have the option to select to use different methods,
Yeah, there
like
we go.
pixels, etc.
Yeah, so if
Yeah,
you click on
exactly.
rem, yeah.
Yeah, and then it probably makes sense to use something that's somehow connected to the screen size, I guess, probably. But then yeah, you can just have some experimentation, I guess. And I also see a different comment. Are there built-in breakpoints for the fluid option listed anywhere for the specific screen sizes?
I think there's
Do
so
you
many
know that?
different screen sizes in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's available on here. It's probably something you can research, but yeah, I think that's a difficult one because there's just such a massive variety of screen sizes. Um, all right.
Makes sense, yes.
Yeah, thank you for that. All right, so let's move on to a few writing flow improvements. The first thing that I just wanted to quickly show you, just going to jump to another test website, is that when you add an image block, for example, you can now drag and drop multiple images into your image block, and then it converts to a gallery block. So that's a new update, but you didn't even have to add your image block, right? If there's nothing there, I could have literally just taken images and I could have dragged and dropped it in there, and it would have done exactly the same thing. All right, so another cool feature. Sorry, this image was just too big for Playground. But yeah, so you can drag and drop as you please. And the next thing that I wanted to show you, this is really neat for me because this is something I didn't like working in the block editor before, but they have made it easier adding content and working with the editor canvas. So I'll show you what I mean. So let's just add, okay, I'll show you. So I'm going to say editor canvas. I'm sure this is something that annoyed you as well, working in the editor. So let's say I wanted to add, I clicked on I use a lot of forward slashes, but let's say you used the plus icon here and you said, okay, I wanted to add a heading. So what happened before 6.7, I click on the heading, and then I click and it closes, right? And I say, this is a heading. I press enter. All right, now I click again. And now I want to add a table. And as soon as I click on the table, it closes again. Create the table. Okay, so in 6.7, when you open your block inserter, it will now stay open when interacting with the editor canvas. Let's see that in action. Okay, so if we go to pages, add new page, let's say editor canvas. Now let's do the same thing. We add a heading, click heading. So remember that it closed. Now I'll say, click there. This is a heading, enter, and I can just go back, table, and it won't close. If I click there, create table, this, yeah, the block inserter will stay open. So yeah, I love this new update as well. It definitely helps with content creation, and it makes it easier to move around the document while adding blocks. All right, so those are two writing flow improvements. Something else that I quickly wanted to show you is the template part swapping. So if you go to a template, for example, your page template, where in your template, of course, you decide how you want your page structure to look. This is where you add your template part, your heading template part, your footer template part. Now, if you select your header template part or your footer template part, you'll notice now you can quickly swap it with one of the patterns. In the past, you usually had to click on replace, etc. So now if you click on header, you can quickly say, oh, I want that one. And you swap your template parts. And the same for your footer. Select your footer, and you can select one of the other available template parts that come with your theme. Okay. Then I also wanted to chat about the fact that you can now add background images to more blocks. Now, we've looked at this in the past. You can even add a background image to your site now, but you can now add, let me just change this quickly. Let's change this to a line. Let's make this a bit smaller. Okay. You can now add a background image to more content blocks, such as the quote block, the verses block, etc. So I've added a verse block here. I've added a little poem or a little verse. And now you'll notice below color, it says background image. And now you can quickly add a background image to this block. And of course, you can customize it further. In the past, you usually had to nest a block like this into a group block because the group block had the functionality, but now more content blocks have this functionality to add a background image. And then the last thing I wanted to show you, I know we've got 10 minutes left for questions and answers. The last thing I wanted to show you, and a lot of design folks are happy about this. Let's go to this page of mine. You now have the option, if you select your group block, you now have the option to add shadow support, or you can add shadow to the group block. Now this was not available previously, but now if you select your group block, you go to styles, you scroll down to border and shadow, and you click on the 3 vertical dots, you'll see there's now an option to add a shadow, a drop shadow, and you can add shadow to the group block now. So yes, those are all the main things that I wanted to cover today. That's related to users and content creation and building in the site editor and the block editor. So I'm going to stop the recording now. So thank you for those folks who joined us asynchronously. We will see you next time.